Education is killing the most employable skill sets of the next decade. Because when you're a little kid, you play with the box, not the toy that it came in. And then you go to school and the first thing you're taught to do is don't forget to colour in between the lines. When you're a small child, what's the small child's question that they ask you again and again and again and again? Why? But then we go to the number one killer of curiosity, education. And the next thing our teacher tells us to do is stop asking why, because.
Hi, I'm Nick Hague, and welcome to the World's Greatest Business Thinkers podcast. As head of innovation and creativity at Disney, Duncan and his team helped Imagineering, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar, and Disney parks to innovate, creating magical new storylines and experiences. He now brings his extensive Disney expertise to audiences around the world using a unique approach to design thinking, helping people capture unlikely connections, leading to fresh thinking and disruptive ideas. Duncan is a multiple TED speaker, helping companies ideate, including Apple, Google, and Coca-Cola, and is a contributor to Fast Company, Forbes, and the Harvard Business Review. He teaches innovation masterclasses at Yale, Harvard, and Edinburgh University, and today he's going to show you how you can embed a culture of innovation into your company's DNA. If creativity and innovation is your thing, then this podcast is for you. And remember to follow and subscribe wherever you listen so you never miss another episode. Welcome to the World's Greatest Business Thinkers podcast, Duncan.
Thanks for having me.
Well, what the first question I want to know is, because I've done a bit of reading up on you, and I want to know how a kid growing up in the Scottish Highlands ends up being head of innovation and creativity for the Walt Disney Company.
Well, so after, because I was, the only A I ever got at school in an exam was absent because I didn't show up for the exam. So I ended up at Edinburgh Napier University because they accepted me because the other 26 said no. And so from there was an American came over and he was doing it. And I thought, I'd never been an American before. And there was a chance to go and work for Disney World for a year. And they were going to fly you over for free, put you in free accommodation with something called an outdoor pool. You thought, yeah, I can make it work. So I did that for a year. I worked at Epcot in the Rose and Crown pub. And then I went back to London and I was working in a pub called the Punch Bowl. Don't know if it still exists today, in Dorking in Surrey. And there was only about 16 people in the Disney office in London at the time. And I phoned the office every single morning, Monday to Friday, for just over 3 weeks at 10:30 a.m. And a lady by the name of Julie answered the phone every day. Got so fed up of taking my phone calls, they made me coffee boy. And I started as a cappuccino lad in the London office. And about 3 weeks into the role, I was told, you're going to be the character coordinator. That's the person that looks after the big characters that walk around the park. At the royal premiere of Who Framed Roger Rabbit in the presence of the Princess of Wales at the Odeon Leicester Square. I was like, what do I do? They said, well, you just stand at the bottom of the stairs. Roger Rabbit will come down the sweeping staircase. The Princess of Wales will come in on the receiving line. She'll greet him or she'll blow him off and she'll move into the auditorium. Now, how could you possibly screw that up? Well, that's the day when I found out what a contingency plan was, because I didn't have one. A contingency plan would tell you if you're going to bring a very tall rabbit with spectacularly long feet down a giant staircase towards the Princess of Wales, one might want to measure the width of the steps from which the rabbit has to come down before he trips on the top step. He's now hurtling like a bullet at torpedo speed down the stairs towards Diana's head. Whereupon he was met in midair by two royal protection officers who just took him out. There's a very famous black and white picture in Reuters of Roger going back through the air like this, two angry guys in suits diving towards him and a 21-year-old PR guy in the background going, shit, I'm fired. So I got a call from a place called Burbank the next day. I've never heard of it. From a CMO. No idea what that was at the time. I thought, it's going to tell me I'm fired. And all I had was, that was great publicity. It's like, who knew? And so I could build a career on it. And so basically for the first 20 years I got to have some of the more mad, audacious, outrageous ideas. And then about 20 years later, ended up as head of innovation and creativity for Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilms, and Disney. Who knew?
Well, it goes to show, doesn't it? You know, like they say, any publicity is great publicity. And I think, well, you know, that story of you phoning up, 27 days straight as well. And it shows the power of persistence as well in getting to where you want to get to.
Yeah, I would say the two things I learned through my career at Disney were persistence and patience.
Yeah.
There's somebody once said to me, and I didn't value it at the time. He said, there's no such thing as a bad idea, just bad timing. And it is so true, because the amount of bad ideas where you would pitch and then 3 years later you pitch the same idea again to the same person who hated it the first time around. Oh, I love this idea. Like, seriously.
Well, my previous guest was Douglas Lamont, CEO of Tony's Chocolonely, but he previous to that he was CEO of Innocent Drinks, and I was saying, what ideas, what's the best innovation that came about, and he said, well, it's actually the one that they've continued to do every year called the Big Knit, and it was one of their marketing guys came in and said, I've got an idea. What we can do is for the homeless people, we can get people to knit little hats to put on the bottles of Innocent Drinks, sell them in supermarkets, and for everyone that people buy, then we'll
Nice.
donate 25p or whatever to a charity. And they all looked around the table and said, that sounds absolutely crazy. No way are we going to do that. What's this guy? I think it was his first week, this marketing manager as well. Anyway, they rolled with it, and years on, it still happens. It's the best thing called the Big Knit, and it's a nightmare for the retailers and to get through to channel in terms of the supply chain. But no, you never know in terms of a good idea and where it might come from. But
Well, I think
we'll touch on many things like that, I'm sure, today.
there's this great quote by Henry Ford: "Whether or not you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right." And so you just got to believe you could do it. So we would do, do you want to do the day I stole the turkey from the President of the United States of America for Thanksgiving story, or the day I sent my son's Buzz Lightyear into space on a space shuttle story? Where are we going?
Well, I think they're both great stories that I'm sure both the listeners want to hear both there. So
So Buzz Lightyear. So this was the opening of Toy Story, and obviously you've got to create some hype around the film. And we were sitting around. I said, well, what was Buzz Lightyear's dream? His dream was to fly because he couldn't, right? So I said, well, what if we could make Buzz Lightyear's dream come true? And they were all like, well, how the hell are you going to do that? I said, I'm going to put him in zero gravity. Of course, I had no idea how to do it at the time. So I went off to pitch NASA. There was about 23 people in the room. There was mission control, astronaut safety, then the very John Wayne type character at the end of the table with a buzz cut and the waistcoat. And you could tell that half the room just loved the idea of taking Buzz Lightyear into space, and half the room wanted to throw me out through the window without opening it first. So the guy at the end of the table, very John Wayne, like, he goes, well, if we're going to take Buzz Lightyear out into space, we're going to have to take him on a spacewalk. I was like, oh my God, did NASA just agree to take Buzz Lightyear? So about I got a call about 6 months before the launch from Johnson Space Center in Texas. And they said, we need Buzz Lightyear here tomorrow. I was like, why? They said, well, I said, the launch isn't for 6 months. He said, well, we need 2 identical Buzz Lightyears here tomorrow. I said, why? He said, well, because we're going to take one of them apart pretty much molecule by molecule. I was like, because? He said, well, because if there's an air pocket inside the plastic of the toy, that could explode in the vacuum of space and potentially kill or injure an astronaut. I was like, yeah, I knew that. So he said, well, the deadline's tomorrow at 4:00. I was like, well, why are you calling me today? So at the time, I don't know if you remember, there were no Buzz Lightyears for sale. They'd all sold out. So
yeah,
I had 37 cast members in Walmart, Target, Kmart, Disney trying to find Buzz Lightyear. I was like, don't tell me this deal is going down because the Walt Disney Company can't find Buzz Lightyear. So we found one. I'm now desperate because the FedEx deadline is coming up. I'm in my car. This is, I want to say, 2003, 2004, before the smartphone, when we used to have the coolest phone on the planet, the Motorola Flip.
yeah.
It was Bond, James Bond. But the thing about the Flip, you couldn't see who was calling. So all I heard on the other end of the phone was, to infinity and beyond. I was like, who the hell is this? So it was my wife. She goes, it's me, dear. I was like, well, where'd you get it? She goes, underneath James's bed. I was like, oh, send it over to him. So I wrote James on his foot, just as Andy had written his name on Woody's foot. And I sent the 2 Buzz Lightyears off to NASA. I said, listen, don't destroy this one. This is a real little boy's Buzz Lightyear. So about 6 months later, we get invited down to the launch at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And I was pathetic. I was weeping like, my little boy is going into space. Off goes Buzz Lightyear. By the way, if you want to see Buzz Lightyear's dream come true, just go to YouTube and type in Buzz Lightyear International Space Station, and you will see Buzz doing a spacewalk in zero gravity.
Yeah.
And then about 2 years later, we were launching another Toy Story. I thought, well, how the hell do you top sending Buzz into space? I thought, I'm going to bring him home. So I phoned up the director of comms at NASA. I said, hey, when are you bringing Buzz back then? There was total silence on the other end of the phone, right? So I said, no man left behind. He goes, you got to be kidding. That was never in the contract. We never agreed to bring Buzz back. I said, well, you bring everything back, right? He says, no, we don't. I said, well, what do you do with everything you take into space? He goes, you just open the hatch, shove it out the back. I was like, oh, you can't incinerate Buzz Lightyear in the Earth's atmosphere. I'll leak it to the world's press that NASA killed Buzz Lightyear. My tongue was so far in my cheek. Anyway, God bless NASA. They agreed to bring Buzz home. At goodness knows, I think it's a couple of $100,000 per pound. Yeah, thank you very much. Through the Earth's
Wow.
He was supposed to land in Florida, but the weather was bad, so they overshot, went out to Edwards Air Force Base in California. And I don't know if you remember those amazing images of the space shuttle getting a piggyback on a 747 to come back.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
I have that passenger manifest, and it said seat 1A Congressman blah blah blah, seat 4B Senator blah blah blah, seat 3A Vice Admiral blah blah blah, seat 37B Commander Buzz Lightyear. NASA had given him a raise,
Promotion.
and so and he's now. If you get a chance to go to Washington DC and go to the Air and Space Museum, you will find Buzz Lightyear in the Air and Space Museum with a little bronze plaque saying "Gift of James Wardle, aged 8."
Well, I'll have to do that. I mean, my boys. In fact, I was probably one of those parents that was running around trying to find a Buzz Lightyear back in '05 for my son then. So, I mean, you've worked for a lot of your career with Walt Disney, and he famously said, "If you can dream it, you can do it." How important do you think imagination is in making things happen?
Everything. Imagination is more important than knowledge. I think that was an Albert Einstein quote, if I remember rightly. I
Yeah.
think if you can dream it, you can do it. So, for example, and hear me out for a moment. Um, I'm going to go forwards a bit here. Today, we want, we all want longer life. We all want healthier life. So what are we doing? We're taking on spare parts, like a car, right? We can have cataract surgery today if we want. We can have hearing aid surgery. We can have pacemakers fitted. We can have prosthetic limbs. And the heart is a pump. At some point in the next 100 years, they're going to figure out we're just going to take on parts like a second-hand car, right? But here's the
Yeah.
thing. So when you were a kid, how many phone numbers of your mates did you know?
Well, I can still reel them off now.
Then you God, nobody else can. Bloody hell. Why? Because they're on here. So your brain is like a hard disk, and it's figured out, right? I can open up a little bit more of my hard disk to think of other things. Well, here comes the Neuralink. Whether or not it will come in your son's lifetime or it's certainly coming in your grandchildren's lifetime. Then what is it in here? You're not going to carry this 100 years from now. It'll be embedded within you, and it'll be that big. Now we will be capable of infinite thought. We'll be walking Wikipedias. But now, if you think about it, we're not going to compete with artificial intelligence. We will merge with artificial intelligence. People ask me what I believe will be the most employable skill sets of the next decade as AI comes marching into the marketplace. The ones with which will be the hardest to program into AI. What are those? The ones with which you were born. You were all born creative. You played with the box, not the toy. Used to ask why, and why again, until he went to school and told not to. We were all born with intuition, we're all born with empathy, and we're all born with amazing imagination. These will be the hardest, these things that make us innately human will be the hardest things to program into AI. And so now you go 200 years forward from now, we won't compete with AI. We will merge with AI. We'll become a superhuman race. If you can dream it, you can do it. If I'd like to be around in 200 years to see it, because I'm sure it's going to come true.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I won't be to see that come true, but no, you never know anyway. So I mean, what I'm interested in today is getting under the skin of how we can make people creative, and we'll touch on that on your toolkit that you've in positioned as a book is a toolkit.
Well,
But
so here's the challenge, right? When you see a book, right, in an office, the business book, where is it?
look at those.
Bingo. Yeah. How many you read? 10%, maybe, maybe not. Why? But they really look really good on a Zoom call, right? Here's the challenge. We're busy. My boss needs this by 2 o'clock. So I thought, okay, what business book have I ever read, or non-fiction book have I ever read, where you could read one page today, get a step-by-step guide on what to do next, and not have to worry about the rest of the book? I thought, my mum's cookbook. You want shepherd's pie? It's on page 67. Sherry trifle, page 112. So the book's designed the same way. It says at the contents page, have you ever been to a brainstorm where nothing ever happened? Go to page 67. Work in a heavily regulated industry. Go to page 112. Don't have the resources. Go to page 5. And so, but equally, I wanted to not just make it accessible, I wanted to make it engaging. So let me ask you a question. Close your eyes.
Okay,
How many days are there in September?
30.
Keep your eyes closed. I want you to think about how you knew, how you learned, how you remembered that. How did you know there were 30 days in September? Or what can you see right now with your eyes closed? How did you know?
Well, I went through the rhyme of 30 days of September, April,
Bingo.
June, and November.
There you go. So you can open your eyes. About 30% of the audience will do that. 30 days has September, blah, blah, blah. And they've just told me your preferred learning style is auditory. You probably read a lot. It's an auditory style of learning. Then you get the people who count their knuckles. January, February, March, April, May, June, July. August, September, October, November, December. The knuckles are 31. These are kinesthetic learners. You learnt this. You don't remember it. They learnt the rhyme. They don't remember that. These people learn by doing. And then the other 40% of the people go, no, I could just see a calendar with the word September and a number 30 on it. These are the visual learners. So the book is designed to appeal to all three. Auditory, there's a QR code in each chapter with a Spotify playlist. Visual, there's a QR code in each chapter where I am a cartoon character. I pop out of the book and teach you how to use the tools with my friends, Nova, Zing, and Spark. And then there's the back of the book is the first ever fully integrated artificial intelligence book. You scan the QR code at the back. You say, hey, how can I sell more brown Sharpies in Manchester on Valentine's Day to the young adult market using the tool on page 67? And the book will answer you. So when I was creating the book, I created this character called Archie. Why? Because his direct ancestor was Archimedes. Because when you ask people where they are when they get their best ideas, everybody says the shower. Well, Archimedes was in the bath. So I created it, designed it, ready to go in the book. And my daughter walks in. She goes, Dad, he's an old white guy. You're an old white guy. You can't do that shit anymore. So I had to create these three new characters. So Spark is masculine. He introduces you to creative behaviors. Zing, gender neutral, introduces you to the energizers. Sorry, you can't see Zing. And then Nova, she's female. She introduces you to the tools because we all know that women are more intelligent than men. Just
absolutely. No, absolutely. What I do love about the book is, like you say, the way that you've structured it, the way that you can just dip in and dip out, and like you say, if you've had a problem, you can go to X page or whatever. But there's the QR codes that take you to, that you've created those little video scenes where you're in them talking about the chapter coming up, but also the playlists, and it's a real eclectic mix from Bocelli to Pharrell Williams, isn't it? Encouraging us to be more creative with sound.
Here's the problem. We don't think, when I ask a room full of adults, hands up who's creative, less than 3% will put their hands up. And look, I wanted to create a toolkit that had three principles. I wanted to take the intimidation out of innovation and make it accessible to normal, hardworking, busy people, make creativity tangible for people uncomfortable with ambiguity. Far more importantly, make it fun, give people tools they choose to use when you and I are not around. So we say the biggest barrier to being more creative and innovative where we work, everybody will tell you, I don't have time to think. And to a certain extent, that's true. But the biggest single barrier is our own river of thinking. Well, what the hell's a river of thinking? A river of thinking is our own expertise and our own experience in the industry and the line of business in which we work. And the longer we work there, the faster, the deeper, and the wider is that river of thinking, allowing you and me to make quick and informed decisions. And that worked really well until 2020. And then the world changed. We had a global pandemic. We've got Generation Z and Generation Alpha entering the workplace, but they don't want to work for you. We've got climate change. So if you don't believe in climate change, come and look at what I used to have. I used to have a back garden. Now it's called a lake. I live in Central Florida. And then, here comes AI. We don't get to think the way we thought through our entire career. So the toolkit is set out to stop you thinking the same way you always do and give you permission to think differently. And so, for example, if I were to ask you what children are better at than adults, what would you tell me? What are they better at than adults?
Well, imagination for one.
Imagination, right? So you used to play with the box, not the toy. We were all born playful, we were all born curious, and we all had it squashed out of us by education. So what's the importance of playfulness at the right time? Close your eyes.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to keep your eyes closed and just shout out the first word that comes into your head, providing it's something you can shout out in your own podcast. When I ask you the following question, where are you usually and what are you doing when you get your best ideas?
Probably dog walking or just falling to sleep.
Oh, that's fine. You can open your eyes. I've done this with up to 20,000 people in the room, and I get them to write it down. And they'll write down shower, commuting, driving, jogging, playing, falling asleep, waking up. How many people write down at work? Nobody writes down at work. Not one person ever has their best ideas at work. Why not? Close your eyes again. Picture that last verbal argument you were in with somebody. Could be a workmate, could be a loved one. You're angry at each other, you're shouting, you're just saying things you'll probably regret later on. Now you turn to walk away from the argument. You're 5 seconds away, you're 10 seconds away from the argument. You're no more than 15 seconds away. And what just popped into your head totally spontaneously the second you turned to walk away from that argument? What was it?
The answer I probably should have given.
The killer one-liner. You can open your eyes. That one perfect, beautiful line you wished you'd used during the argument, but you didn't, did you? No. Why? Because when we're in an argument, our brain is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. All right, defending ourselves. When we're at work, we're doing emails, we're doing presentations, we're doing meetings, we're doing compliance training, we're doing reports, and we hear ourselves say, I don't have time to think. The number one barrier to innovation and creativity. at work. When you say I don't have time to think, you're in the brain state that science calls beta. I call it busy beta, where the reticular activating system, nobody remembers it, call it a door, it's easier to remember, between your conscious and subconscious brain is firmly closed. When that door is shut, you're only working with your conscious brain. Do you know what percentage of your brain is conscious?
Well, I remember it from the book because it hit me. It was quite a big stat. It was something in the 80% is subconscious.
Yeah, 13% conscious, 87% subconscious. 87% of the capacity of your brain is back here. Something you worked on in the past, an innovation you've seen, a creative problem you've ever solved. But when the door is shut, you don't have access to it. So what do? I'm playful. I run an energizer. There's some in the book. What are they? They're 60-second exercises specifically designed to make you laugh. Why? Because the moment I hear laughter, I've just opened the door between your conscious and subconscious brain and metaphorically placed you back in the shower when you have your best ideas. I don't expect people to be playful every second of every day. I do expect you to be playful when you're trying to develop new ideas. So we're going to do an energizer now. So if I were to ask you if you were a creative person, would you put your hands up?
I'd say creative-ish.
Okay. If I were to ask you if you could draw like the Spanish painter Pablo Picasso, would you put your arms up?
Well, I'll give it a go.
Okay, so notepad and pen. Put the
Okay.
notepad on, put the notepad on your knee, not on your desk, because you'll cheat if you put it on the desk. You won't mean to, but you will. Now I'm going to look directly into your eyes, lovingly. I want you to look lovingly into my eyes. Come on, love. So now, without once losing eye contact, if you once look down at that notepad, I'll bust your ass. And if I look down, you can bust my ass.
Okay.
Without once losing eye contact or looking down, you have 20 seconds to draw my face. Go. Do not look down. Do not look down. Nose, mouth, little smile there. A couple of wrinkles there, just saying. Sorry, just had to call that out. Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Share your genius. Come on, let's take a look. Come on. What you got? There it is, Picasso, right? See, look, see. So all I'm doing is listening for laughter. The moment I hear laughter, I've opened the door between your conscious and subconscious brain and placed you into the right brain state for creativity at work. It's amazing because when you ask people who are the most creative people you ever, if you ask people the other barrier, they say, we don't have the resources. Then you say, well, who are the most creative people you ever met? They say, kids. How much money they got? Oh, that's right. They don't. Don't tell me you don't have the resources.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm looking at that picture now. I think you look more like Julius Caesar on my side than than Duncan Wardle. I'm interested, Duncan. We'll dig a bit more into the book, but just stepping back and thinking about the broader landscape of innovation. How do you think it's changed? With technology's rapid growth, is that why being creative is so important in today's modern world?
Well, so a couple of things. When we go back to the I don't have time to think, so people, I think everybody's frightened of AI, and I think everybody's excited about AI, and I think they go backwards and forwards every single day, right? So do I, right? I'm not frightened of AI. I'm frightened of man's stupidity. Here's the thing: the number one barrier to innovation at work, I don't have time to think. Well, what do you think AI is about to give you? It's going to do your weekly reports for you. It's going to do your accounts for you. It's going to do your finance for you. It's going to do the legal work. It's going to do all this stuff, all the mundane stuff you didn't want to do anyway, which frees us up to be more creative. And I think that to me is the single biggest benefit of AI in terms of innovation and creativity is it's going to give us that brain space where we are when we have our best ideas.
Yeah, and allow us, I suppose, to be more human. That you've talked of empathy. The curious. Well, when I was always looking to hire people, I was always looking for curiosity and imagination. So at the moment, at least, I think
So
we as humans are better than AI bots right now.
they did an experiment. I believe education is killing the most employable skill sets of the next decade. Because when you're a little kid, you play with the box, not the toy that it came in. And then you go to school, and the first thing you're taught to do is don't forget to colour in between the lines. When you're a small child, what's the small child's question that they ask you again? That one word question they ask you again and again and again and again. Why? Because they know you lied the first time. That's why they're after the core consumer truth. They are after the insight for innovation. Now, our data is getting better and better and better. And with AI, it'll go into the outer stratosphere. But today, our data stops at the second why. But the child doesn't. Child goes to the fourth or fifth why. Why? Because the insight for innovation comes on the fourth or fifth why. If I were to survey 5,000 people listening today and ask them why they go to Disney on holiday, the number one response I'm going to get is, we go for the new attractions. If I were to only rely on my data, I'd go spend $250 million on a capital investment strategy. But if I were to pause for a moment and say, well, why do you go for the new attractions? Well, no, I like It's a Small World. Well, why on earth do you like It's a Small World? Well, I remember the music. Oh God, not the music. Why the music? I hated the music. Why the music? Well, it's my mum's favourite ride. We used to go every summer. Why is that important to you 25 years later? Oh, I take my daughter now. Boom, there's your insight for innovation. It has nothing to do with the capital investment strategy whatsoever and everything to do with your personal memory and nostalgia. That's a communication campaign. But then we go to the number one killer of curiosity, education. And the next thing our teacher tells us to do is stop asking why, because there's only one right answer. And what are parents guilty of? Self included. The classic, because I said so. Don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, as a career market researcher, before doing this podcast, I've asked a lot of questions, but and actually reading your book and learning around, the five, you get into the nub of the actual answer on the fifth and sixth why. I really like that you brought that out because in qualitative research in focus groups say we call it a laddering technique, but it's exactly the same where you're really looking to
Am
understand
I
the
allowed to
result.
swear in a podcast?
Go for it.
Focus groups. What a total waste of money. Sorry, but it just is. And I know I shouldn't have said that. And I apologize to anybody I've just offended. Focus groups take place in a room with no windows and no doors and one moderator. And it's not you're behind the two-way glass. It's not the most relaxed environment for real insights from our fellow human beings. And we tend to do focus groups because the market research group go, oh, we must get 12 or 14 individuals in from our market segmentation study because we need value for money. Oh, yeah, great. Individuals don't tell the truth. Couples tell the truth. If you go in and ask a bloke by himself, what do you do in your time at Disney? What do you like? He'll go, oh, I like the thrill rides. If his husband or wife is next to him, they're going to go, no, honey, you did Small World 17 times back to back last year. You really loved it. You get real insights out of couples you don't get out of individuals. The killer insights come in their living rooms. Those are the ones that are buried in your data on page 14, bullet point 57, you can't feel data. Those are the ones your competition can't find because they didn't have the courage to look there. We were tasked by Disneyland Paris to get more people to come more often, spend more money, the classic. Our data told us who could afford the brand, who had an affinity to the brand, had been shopping online. It was a 10 out of 10 of them coming this year, but they hadn't come. So my intuition, remember the power of intuition in an AI-dominated world, what place does intuition have? By the way, you have 120 billion neurons here and 120 million neurons in your second brain, the brain with which we say we make most of our decisions when we went with our gut. My intuition told me these people were either liars or procrastinators because they said they were coming and they hadn't come. So we went to go and find out. Our going in hypothesis based on data and data alone was if we build it, they will come. Why? Because we build new attractions, people come with that. That's the way we've done it for 50 years. We'll be fine. Okay, but before you go spend $250 million, you might want to find out it's right. So we went off to go and live with a bunch of families for a day. Now, I know you mentioned you had a son. Do you have any other kids or just the one?
No, two sons.
Two sons. Okay, close your eyes. Where's the favourite photograph of your sons? It's a physical one. It's not a digital one. It's in your house somewhere, I dare say. In fact, I can see a couple right behind you on the desk. It's your favourite one. It was the one that makes your heart smile every time you think of that particular photograph. Which room is it
So
in? Which room
that'll be
is
in
it?
the kitchen
Kitchen. Is it on a wall, on a bookshelf, on a fridge, on a table? Where is it?
on a wall.
On a wall. Is it in a frame?
Yes.
Okay. What's the frame look like?
Well, actually, it's on it's not on a frame. It's on a board. That's
Okay. All right. Okay. Can you describe the photograph to us, if you would, please?
yeah. Two boys are lying. They're lying on the floor. A photographer shot them while they're on the floor. They've got their heads towards each other, both wearing stripy tops.
Nice. So it was the Christmas picture, was it?
Do you know what? It was my 40th that my wife got it for me.
Okay. So, and what are your sons' names, if you're okay with telling us?
Sure, Oliver and Casper.
Oliver and Casper. How old were Oliver and Casper the day that photograph was taken?
They would have been, well, if it was my 40th, then they would have been 4 and 9.
4 and 9. How old are they today?
21 and just turned 16.
Bingo. So that photograph's about 17 years old, right? Give or take.
Yeah.
All right. So you can open your eyes. So, and if anybody else who's listening here today, can you close your eyes? Where's that favorite one of your kids? And for those of you who don't have kids, you close your eyes. Where's that one of you? It's in your parents' house or your parents' apartment, isn't it? That really dorky one of you from about 20, 25 years ago where you look like a complete dickhead. But it's still there, isn't it? Oh, yes, it is. So now why did you pick that one? I'm sure you've got photographs of your son's graduation from high school. I'm sure you've got photographs of him playing rugby or whatever he did. I'm sure you've got photographs of everything else because he's now at university in America. So you've got hundreds of other photographs you could have chosen, but you chose that one. Why? Why? Well, remember the 7 whys? So I was living with 26 different mums, and I interviewed them all because the mum I was living with, her photograph was they looked like they were 4 or 5, just like your kids. And I asked her how old they were. She said 21 and 22. I was like, why? Why'd you pick that one? We could have picked any other one. So, and here's what I found: these 26 mums all told me about the same 3 moments in time through which a parent and a child must cross, but we both instantly regret it. We want to step back. I call them bittersweet transitions. Um, so I know where I was for all three. I'm a dad. I've got intuition. I knew where I was the day my son was 9 or 10. He came around the bedroom door on Christmas Eve. He goes, "Papa, are you Santa Claus?" It's like, boom. Didn't see that. So, what hurt so much was behind what he had said was, "I'm not your little boy anymore, Daddy. I'm growing up. I know exactly where I was." Girls, I don't want to call you out, but I will, because you. This is one of the most seminal moments of your life, but you don't remember it ever took place. Dad does. I know where I was. I was in Kissimmee, Florida. It was a Tuesday morning. We're outside Michael's craft store, going up to Len's Crafters. My daughter was on my left-hand side. Oh, that was the day she dropped my hand in public for the very first time. It's a seminal moment between a father and a daughter. Don't believe me? Text your dad and ask him where he was that day. He'll answer you in a nanosecond. It's a very seminal moment between a dad and a daughter. And the last one is when you have to take them off to university. And you have to turn around and say goodbye for the very first time. And you hug them, you laugh, you just smile, tell them how much you love them, you walk out in the car park and lose it like everybody else. Our going in hypotheses based on data and data alone was if we build it, they will come. But by spending a day with our consumer on their turf and finding an insight for innovation that wasn't even in our data, we realized, despite what our data was telling us, there isn't a single mum listening to this podcast today who woke up this morning going, "Oh, I wonder if Disney is going to build a new attraction this year." But every mum listening or watching this podcast today woke up the same way she wakes up every single day, worried about how quickly her children are growing up and how she wants to make special memories for them while they still believe, while they still hold my hand, while they're still here. That's the segmented communication campaign, one that drove record results to Disneyland Paris and turned a very product-centric organization into a genuinely consumer-centric organization. Now mandatory for every Disney executive to sweep the streets of a Disney theme park for 2 8-hour shifts a year and spend one full 8-hour shift in the living room of one of our consumers. That is the power of intuition in an AI-dominated world.
Well, and that's probably the reason why, like you say, I pulled on that photograph in particular, that picture, and it was probably the reason, maybe that year, that we did go to Disneyland Paris, because they were growing up, and we wanted to make sure that we shared that family time before, while they did still believe. So, yeah, no, you got it spot on there. I've heard you say that there's a lot of large global brands that are out there, but aren't going to be around in 5 years' time, as they can't act like this. Well, they don't have that entrepreneurial startup spirit, and although they want innovation, they don't know how to. How can large organizations create this culture that fosters this continuous innovation?
Stop being scared, stop chasing quarterly results. You could iterate up to 2020. You don't get to iterate in a post-pandemic world, in an AI-dominated world. You innovate or you die. The challenge is this: innovation is hard, right? And so, but because nobody's made it tangible, easy, and fun. That's why. And it's people say, "Oh, my book's too playful." I'm like, great, people will use it. We had a 3.5-year wait list for a 2-day training course at Disney. That was a voluntary training course. That's when you know you're getting something right. I tried 3 or 4 models of innovation. I tried an outside consultant. They were very expensive. They were never around for execution. They certainly weren't going to show me how they did what they did because they were worried I wouldn't use them again. Model number 2, create an innovation team. What could possibly go wrong? Duncan will be in charge. When you create an innovation team, you subliminally just told everybody else in the organization they're off the hook. They don't have to innovate anymore. So we tried an accelerator program where we bring in some young tech startups with an interesting piece of business. We take a 50-50 stake in their business and help them bring it to market. We could help them scale it. They could help us bring it to market much quicker because they weren't encumbered by our politics, and that's the way we do it here. But we had failed in our overall goal, which was how might we embed a culture of innovation and creativity into everybody's DNA. That's when I set out to create the toolkit that, as I mentioned, takes the intimidation out of innovation, makes it more accessible, makes creativity tangible, makes the tools fun. Not hysterically fun, but enough that people will use them when you and I are not around. That's when you know you're changing a culture.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a key point, isn't it, is you don't actually need lots of money to be innovative or creative. Go back to
So
that.
I was
Sorry.
tasked. I was tasked many years ago to Mumbai, to the Dharavi slum. If you've seen the film Slumdog Millionaire, that slum really exists. About 1 million people living in an area about the size of I don't know, a small town in Britain. Um, that's a lot of people in a small town. When I say small town, I mean village. And you would think squalor, and to a certain extent, you'd be right. But the level of entrepreneurialism, innovation, and creativity taking place in that slum with zero resources would far outstrip you or me. Our task was to create light where there was no electricity on zero budget. It was a pro bono project. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing. Never been to India. I thought I'd give it a go. So I was sitting outside of the slum one day in a cafe, which had electricity, and I was drinking out of a plastic bottle that was on the table. And when the light hit the bottle, it refracted the light, a little ring around the bottle. So I thought, oh, I was just being curious like a child. I picked the bottle up and the ring of light got a bit bigger. So I thought, well, hang on a minute. What if I take the advertising label off? What if I take the lid off the bottle? I thought, oh, hang on a minute. It gets bigger and bigger. So then I thought, well, hold on. So I stood on a chair and put the bottle of water closer to the light source. And about a height of 12 feet, I could refract that light out to about 3.5 feet. I can't speak I've been in America too long. I don't know what that is in meters anymore. I'm a dinosaur. Um, but it wasn't particularly strong. So the bloke who was sitting next to me said, put some chlorine in the water, you'll magnify the light. So I thought, well, I'll give it a go. Walked out to a hut next door that had no light, cut a hole in the ceiling, stuffed the bottle through it, and lit the hut during daylight hours. Wrote to a mate of mine who works for Evian in Paris, told him the project we were working on. I said, hey, you're about to trash the planet with 1,000,000 empty bottles. He said, yeah, so what's your point? I said, I tell you what, send them to me for free. Take your advertising label off the bottle. Take your branding off the bottle. And send them to me for free. We've got no money. 6 weeks later, we lit 1,000,000 huts during daylight hours with no electricity and no money, just by being curious like a child.
What an amazing story! Yeah, that is really groundbreaking. So well, let's dig into the book then, because we've already touched on bits of it, and it's split into these different sections. There's four key, I suppose, sections to the book, and the first section you've talked about is mastering your mind, and I think it's probably important to start by maybe retelling the story that you had when you were in your role as head of innovation and creativity at Disney, and you had this watershed moment where one of your junior employees just said to you, you always shoot me down on my ideas, every last one of them, and how it changed your thinking.
So I'll reframe it slightly. So you and I are in charge of a birthday party. We've got $100,000 in the party, and for the budget for the party, we could be Star Wars or Harry Potter. What do you want it to be?
Uh, my son would say Harry Potter, but I've got to say Star Wars.
Right, so Star Wars it is. I'm going to come at you with some Star Wars ideas for our party. I'd like you to start for each and every response with the words you hear when people are killing your ideas. The classic no because. So you'll start each line with no because, and you'll tell me why not. So I was thinking I could come to your house, right? And we could turn it into the intergalactic Death Star cantina. We could have an intergalactic food and wine festival from Hoth, Naboo, and Tatooine.
Well, no, because my wife's so house proud. She'd just hate all that footfall through the house.
Tell you what, we'll do a cosplay party. All the people could come as Darth Vader, and all the little people would come as Ewoks.
No, because I suppose my favourite part of the movie. I didn't want the Ewoks in there, so let's think of different characters.
All right, I was looking for my lightsaber. I can't find it. What if we had glow-in-the-dark lightsabers full of our favourite alcoholic liquid?
No, because someone might get injured, and you know what health and safety is like.
Okay. Don't get me started. Tell you what, then we'll just show the movies on a screen. We'll do 7 movies back to back and give them free popcorn and free Coca-Cola.
No, because popcorn will go down the back of the couch, and again, my wife will go crazy about that.
So we'll stop there. When you're pitching an idea and somebody's constantly using no because, how does that make you feel?
Downhearted.
Okay. Would you say our idea was getting bigger or smaller then? We started with an intergalactic food and wine festival. We ended up with free popcorn, which
Definitely narrower.
So I'd like to show you a different way of doing it. I know everybody listening is like, oh, this is daft. I knew the reasons why not. We all know the reasons why not. The more experience and more expertise we have, the more reasons we know why the new idea won't work. So we constantly shoot it down. We don't even give it a chance. It's just an idea. So I'd like to do it again. This time it's a Harry Potter party. Same budget, $100,000. I'm going to come at you with this amazing idea, after which you'll respond with yes and will be the first 2 words in each response, and we'll build it together. So I was thinking, I could come to your house. I know your wife's quite house proud, right? So we'll put the sorting hat outside the front door, and all the good people get the Gryffindor party, which is indoors, and all the Slytherin people get the dark, mysterious party, which is outside.
Yes, well, and we can, dress the whole house up looking like Hogwarts.
Oh yes, and yes, we could have the four dino. Everybody could come in their favourite colours. So green for Slytherin, yellow for Hufflepuff. Can't remember what it is for Ravenclaw, and maroon for Gryffindor.
Well, yes, and we could probably have a good game of Quidditch in the garden too.
Oh yes, and we could give everybody a Nimbus 2000 that's actually powered by drones.
Well, yes, and well, we could brew our own butterbeer too.
Oh yes, and we could have a magic potions room full of our favourite cocktails that turn us into something totally freaky.
Yes, and I could arrive as Hagrid on a motorbike.
There you go. So we'll stop there. So what you notice in that exercise is a lot more laughter, a lot more giggles, and most of us became Italian for the first time today. A lot more energy. This time around, bigger or smaller? Which way were we headed?
Oh, definitely bigger, yeah.
Now, you have constituents, you have clients, you have bosses, you have local governments, you have compliance, and everybody else to bring on board with your ideas. And by the time we just finished building that party idea together, whose idea was it by the time we'd finished?
Everyone's.
Hours. Two very simple words from the world of improv that have the power to turn small idea into a big one really, really, really quickly. You can always take a big idea and value engineer it down, but it's very hard to take a small one and turn it around the other way. Far more importantly, transfers the power of my idea, which never goes anywhere inside an organization, to our idea and accelerates its opportunity to get done. I know you've got responsibilities. I know you've got deadlines. I know you've got quarterly results. It's just an idea. Remind ourselves, we're not greenlighting this idea for execution today. We're merely greenhousing it together. Don't let the first two words out of your mouth be no, because. That person may have genius 2 seconds from now, 2 minutes from now, 2 hours from now. If the first two words out of your mouth are no, because, they ain't coming back.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the first section in the book, but the real journey does start to innovation and creativity with something you call the energizers. Again, you've talked about these already, and I wish I'd had this book when I was running lots of workshops for my clients because there's some fabulous exercises in there and icebreakers. But why is this stage so important?
Fun with purpose. As I mentioned earlier on when we were doing Picasso, it's just about opening the door between your conscious and subconscious brain and metaphorically placing you back in the shower where you are when you have your best ideas. That's the only reason we do them. I don't expect people to be playful every minute of every day. I do expect them to be playful when they're trying to develop a big idea. But on that first section, it's interesting. Everybody avoids the first section because I define the sections as, have we asked the right idea in the first place? Have we gone out and gathered insights by looking in new and unusual places, such as the example I gave you early on for Disneyland Paris? How do we think big? And then, hey, which one's the right idea? How do we get it done? That first section, here's the importance of this one. And everybody avoids it because it's the hard work. If we don't ask the right question in the first place, we end up in 180 degree. Has anybody listening to this ever ended up on a project where you're working 3 weeks, 3 months out, you think, hang on a minute, we're working on the wrong thing. So let me tell you an apocryphal tale, which I think brings it to life. Actually, let me see if I've got, oh, look, I have. Brilliant. So in the 1960s, yes, I was there, there was the space race, and the Americans were competing against the Soviets to land a man on the moon. And they had a lot of, that was a very innovative decade. They had to figure out how we're going to get there, how we're going to get back, how we're going to breathe, how we're going to eat, how we're going to communicate. So NASA put out a brief that said, we need a pen that writes in space. Bing! That's what they got. This is called the space pen. It looks like a torpedo. It writes in zero gravity. It writes in minus 350 degrees Fahrenheit. It writes upside down. It writes anywhere you want it. And so then détente comes, 1989. The Berlin Wall comes down. We're friends for a couple of weeks. And the Americans are up on the space station with the Russian cosmonauts and showing off all of the examples of innovation over the last 3 decades. The Americans are like, hey, we got the space pen. And the Soviets were like, wow, that is amazing. They made us use pencils. It's like, oh, whoops. So that is the importance of asking the right questions in the first place. If NASA had extended the brief a bit, they'd have found that they actually had what they needed. So that's kind of section one. It's about asking the right questions in the first place. There's another genius of it all, because when you get the brief, right, the brief has never been written by the senior person. It's been written by all their minions, and it's been edited 350 times, and just to be absolutely perfectly phrased. But then it was so you've got the intellectual response to the brief, but you don't have a visceral response. What that person really wanted often goes unspoken. And there's a brilliant tool. I call it Scope. All you do is put a physical rope on the floor, and you give each person to write down an idea they think is in or out of scope, and each person does that, and then they present them, and the stakeholder has to put that piece of paper physically inside the scope or outside of scope, and then you have to ask why, because that's the important thing. So we were doing a project where we thought if we told the Hispanic market that we were relevant, they would come. Typical arrogant product-centric approach. And one of the ideas somebody threw out was on the piece of paper was we would develop a new Hispanic Disney princess. This was in the day before Coco and all the other princesses. And the CMO umdenard and umdenars, and they don't get to put it on the rope, and it's that physical manifestation of where to put it that really forces them to ask themselves, have I set this team up for success? Is there anything that went unspoken? And she put it outside the rope. Of course, the first question you ask is why? She said, well, because it's not the remit of the Disney Parks division to create Disney princesses. That's the job of the Disney studios. She said, but wait a minute. If you come up with any products or services that you think are relevant to the Hispanic market, I want to hear about them. Boom, in 1 second, we went from spending a couple of $100 million on a campaign saying we were relevant to realize we weren't. And you couldn't book a table of 8 together for dinner. You couldn't book a table after 8 o'clock at night. You couldn't book connecting rooms. And that's the power of that tool. It's very, very, very powerful. It's about understanding the underlying principles, if you will. The next section, my favorite, is like, hey, how do we have big ideas? Hands up, who likes to break the rules? My favorite is called What If. These tools are simple, powerful, and fun. This tool was created by Walt Disney for the film Fantasia. He wanted to pump mist into the theatre and heat in, and the theatre owner said, no, Walt, that's far too expensive. That's not the way we do it here. We tried that last year. That weren't our KPIs. So Walt, step 1. List the rules of what you're working on next week. Don't think about them, just list them. If you start thinking about the rules, you'll think of all the reasons that it won't work. So he wrote down the rules of going to a movie theatre. I must sit down, it is dark, I must go to set time, I must pay to go in. Walt, can't control the environment. So list the rules, pick one, and ask the most audacious, provocative, outrageous, absurd what-if question. So he chose the environment. He said, well, what if I could control the environment? Well, he couldn't. He didn't own the movie theatre. So he said, okay, if I can't control the environment inside the theatres, what if I take my movies out of the theatre? Well, that's a bit tricky in 1950. And people said, well, no, well, they're two-dimensional. They fall over. People will be able to see them. He said, well, what if I made them three-dimensional? If you know the answer, you're iterating. If it scares you, you're innovating. And they said, well, how are you going to do that? Well, he said, well, what if I dress people up in costume? I could have princesses and pirates and cowboys. Yeah, but well, you can't have Cinderella standing next to Jack Sparrow. People wouldn't be immersed in her story. Yeah, you're right. What if I put them in different lands? What if I called it Disneyland? Boom, we're done here. Simple, powerful, fun.
Yeah.
Now, I know anybody watching is going to say, well, I don't have the resources of Disney. Well, if I give you a big example, I'll give you a tiny one. Because I want you to know the tools work for you. Very small company in Great Britain, mid-60s, before the days of automation, used to make glasses that we drink out of, found too much breakage and not enough production. So they went down to the shop floor, observed the industry for 4 or 5 hours, and wrote down what they noticed, the rules. 26 employees, conveyor belt, 12 glasses to a box, 6 on the top, 6 on the bottom, separated by corrugated cardboard, glasses wrapped individually in newspaper, employees reading the newspaper. So somebody asked the somewhat provocative, absurd what-if question, what if we poke their eyes out? Well, that's against the law and it's not very nice. But because they had the courage to ask the most absurd what-if question of all, the lady sitting next to immediately jumped out of her river of thinking and said, well, what if we just hire blind people? Production up 26%, breakage down 42%. The British government gave them a 50% salary subsidy for hiring people with disabilities. List the rules of what you're working on. Don't think about them. Pick one and ask the most absurd what-if question. That's one of the tools in step 3. Step 4 is about how do we know we've got the right idea to take to market? Virgin is a very elastic brand. Disney is a non-elastic brand. Disney does family magical experiences. Virgin does condoms and space travel and everything in between. So how does Virgin decide what ideas to bring to market if they've got hundreds? I call this Stargazer. I borrowed it with pride from Richard Branson. It's, again, simple, powerful, and fun. You'll find it somewhere in the book. I can't remember the page number. It just looks like a starfish, just like that. Right? So There you are. You've got 5 criteria. So it might be, is this idea aligned with our brand? Is this idea a strategic brand fit? Does it stand with who we stand for as a brand? Is it going to make us a bucket load of money? You might have a fiscal goal. Is it embedded in consumer truth? Is this relevant to our particular consumer that we're going after? Can I get this in the market in the next 18 to 24 months? Can I actually get it done? And is it so socially engaging it's going to get the young adults to share it on social media? So you'll choose your own success criteria, but choose it on day one with the most senior stakeholder in the room. And every time you update them on the project, make sure we all just check off on the criteria again, because we know the goalposts move when some other leader comes in and wants to make their mark. And if the goalposts are going to move, you and I are going to want to know about it. So, and all you do is, let's say you've got your final 3 or 4 ideas, or you may be down to about 17 different choices. Idea number 2, you're going to score it in orange, and you're going to ask, does it do a poor job, a good job, or an outstanding job of aligning with our brand? It does a pretty good job. Is it going to make us a bucket load of money? Absolutely not. Is it socially engaging? Not in the slightest. Can I get it in the market the next 18 to 24 months? That would be easy. Is it relevant to our consumer? Yeah, it does a fairly good job. And then, just as you did when you were a child, you're going to join the dots. And that's how it goes against your criteria. And why is this important? Because ideas are the most subjective thing on the planet. You like pink, I like green, our boss likes yellow. Guess what? We're doing the yellow idea. Not helpful. And then one idea will rise to the top as to meeting your criteria the most, not the one the boss likes the best. It's simple, powerful, and fun. When we were bringing 2 new Disney cruise ships into market, we had to decide where the old ones would go, because the new ones were 2 times bigger. And we knew that over 80% of the cruise market revenue is in the Caribbean. So, in any big organization, this is now analysis paralysis. We're all going to sit around and analyze the heck out of it for 6 months. You're like, guys, you can make the decision in 20 minutes. But we never did, right? And then it usually comes down to Bob and Sally. Oh, Bob's not here today. Well, we better wait and cover off Bob. Oh, Sally's not. Oh, we better wait. Oh, okay, great. Well, then the decision never gets made, right? And then it comes down to Bob goes, well, you know what? We did the Arctic cruise last year. My wife really liked it. And Sally goes, no, we did a Med cruise. It was brilliant. I don't give a toss about Bob and Sally. Right. One of the things is it relevant to our consumer? And actually, could we get that ship in the dock that we wanted in the next 18 to 24 months? If the answer was no, shockingly enough, we weren't doing it. And so this is how powerful this tool is. We took 16 senior vice presidents into a room, and 59 minutes later, they made a decision.
That must be a record.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Simple, powerful, fun. That's what the tools are designed to be.
Yeah. And getting that buy-in and alignment and making sure that you've got the processes to actually, follow through and deliver on it. So no, I think that's fantastic, Duncan. To finish off, we could talk for hours on this, but and so many examples. So go and buy the book, listeners, because there's more examples in there. But to finish off, I've got my usual questions I ask all my guests. My last guest, I've already referenced him, Douglas Lamont. He was CEO of Tony's Chocolate Only and previously CEO of Innocent Drinks for 9 years. So Douglas asks, how do you remove fear from the process to enhance creativity and innovation?
Give people the tools to do the job. We train our IT team, we train our legal team, we train marketing, we train sales, we train plumbers, we train electricians. And when it comes to innovation and having a big idea, we tell people to get in the room and they've got 2 hours. Don't stop the madness. Give people the tools to do the job, and that's what the toolkit does.
Yeah. Next, a couple of questions from the listeners, and we had loads of questions here, but I've only been able to choose 2. So firstly is Randy Perdue in Chicago, who asks, what's the biggest barrier that people face when trying to access their imagination, how they should overcome it? Well, I think you've answered that earlier, talking about not having time or resources, but how should people overcome that whole, not having the time resources piece?
Again, AI is about to do that for us, right? AI finishes my sentences for me. I can do ChatGPT to brainstorm do my fiscal reports for me. I think AI is about to address that. But the other piece that is just as important is playfulness. And again, I don't expect you to be playful every minute of every day, but I do expect you to be. So here's the thing. One of the things that stops us is, let me ask you a question. I want you to physically put your hands up. Hand up if you've ever been to your favorite restaurant or cafe. You read the menu, never changed. You're listening to the specials. You're not listening, and then you order the same thing every single time. Okay, I know it's chicken tikka masala. You're a Brit. I don't like it. Hands up if you get in and sleep on the same side of the bed every single night.
Well, it depends if I'm in a hotel room and the bathroom's nearer the other side. My wife will
yourself. Yeah, yeah. Have you ever commuted home and you used to commute home before the pandemic, and you get home and there's just that split second where you look at the front door and you just go, "Oh, how did I get home?"
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, we've all done it. Here's what the importance of this, and hopefully this will answer your viewer's question. Because you went past the same stimulus every single day, your brain physically shut down, didn't wake up till you got home. No new stimulus in, no fresh ideas out. It could be as simple as take 1 hour a month. Take the first Friday of every month from 9 till 10 a.m. and invite your friends or your colleagues to come together for a brown bag breakfast, free donuts and coffee, and invite them to talk about something they've seen in their business life or something they've seen in their personal life that they thought was innovative or creative. You'd be amazed at the amount of new ideas you drive back into the business.
Yeah. Well, I don't do that commute anymore, but I do use Waze trying to get, because around my way the traffic is terrible, and it always takes me on some weird and magical way. So that does keep me awake and aware. Okay, the second question is from Elaine Francis. She's in Edinburgh, and she asks, "What's your favourite exercise or tool from your book that you find most effective for sparking creative thinking?"
What if the one I described earlier on is the one where you list the rules, you list them one at a time, and then you pick one and you smash it. So, and it's so easy to use. So, for example, Blockbuster Video, right? The guy who was fed up of paying late fees, he went into a Blockbuster Video, he sat down and listed the rules. I must drive to a physical store. I must go at a set time. I can only go during opening hours. They can only let me take out 3 at a time. They have a very limited stock. I had to return the video. I had to be kind of rewind that little sucker, and I had to pay a late fee. Just list the rules. Don't think about them. Then he picked one, and he picked a store. And in 2005, had the courage to say, "What if there was no physical store?" He didn't know the answer, but there's another tool in the book called Where Else. Most of the insights for innovation will come from looking outside of your industry. So he looked outside of his and found a very small company in 2005 called YouTube, who were only streaming amateur content. So he said, "Well, wait a minute. What if I just did a deal with the major movie studio? I'll just stream professional content. Nobody would have to drive to a store. I'll be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Everybody would get the one they want. They won't have to return it. I'll cut the rental off at 24 hours. Nobody pays a late fee. I'll call it Netflix. I'll take my idea to Blockbuster 5 times. They'll turn me down 5 times. I'll take them out of business in less than 5 years."
Yeah, yeah.
No,
How
I
wrong
like
we
it
were.
primarily because I like breaking the balls.
What's the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
I don't know that anybody ever gave it to me, but well, no, actually, no. It's the one I give. So this lady was from Edinburgh. So Edinburgh Napier University. Thank you for accepting me because nobody else did. When I was at school before that at Rannoch, thank you very much, up in Perthshire, boarding school, 250 boys, kill rugby every day. The definition of winter sports was they changed the colour of the rugby ball so you could see it in the snow. You know, geez. Um, Here's the thing: I failed at all my highs and I failed at all my A levels, except a couple of them. And I got an A in a couple of subjects. That was history and English literature. Why? Because I loved them. Do what you love what you do. You'll be really successful. I don't care if you're a plumber, an electrician, a gardener, a nurse. If you do what you love, you'll be really good at it. This is not rocket science, right? It worked at school. Well, why don't we apply that to our everyday lives? And if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. People ask me, I'm going to do 122 live events this year. Some keynote speeches, some actually training people how to use the tools, and some helping people have totally mental ideas. Why do I do that many? I don't have to. I love doing it. That's why.
Yeah. Well, I was lucky that it didn't clash with one of your workshops today, so we're thankful that we got it in the diary. Who would you like me to reach out to, Duncan, to invite to come on this podcast in the future? Who do you like to hear?
Oh, Richard Branson. I love Richard Branson because here's the thing: nobody ever calls Richard. Have you ever seen the word Richard Branson CEO? No.
No.
Entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, always an entrepreneur. Richard, and I wouldn't say this works in every single industry, but I'd say it works out of 9 out of 10. Look after your people; they'll take care of your customers. So this customer obsession with the customer, people. For you look after your people, they're the people who design the products and touch your customers every single day, not you.
Well, he's a hero of mine, so we'll definitely do our best and try and reach out to him and get him on the podcast. Finally, my next guest is Amy Gallo. Her book's on the bookshelf there called Getting Along. She's an expert on workplace dynamics, best-selling author of her book. But what question would you like to ask Amy?
Um, In an ideal physical work environment, where should everybody sit?
Great question. Yeah. Well, I will ask that to her in the coming weeks when I speak to her. But I think to wrap up today, Duncan, then I've quoted Walt Disney and yourself have quoted him a few times, but I think it's quite fitting to summarise to say, he quoted, "First think, second dream, third believe, and finally dare." In your book, book/toolkit, definitely helps you embrace that creativity. So many ideas, exercises that we've talked about. So it will awaken, listeners, your internal creative side that you didn't know you had. So go and buy the book, and I promise it will definitely awaken that side of you. I think the other key takeaway from today is just don't be afraid to fail. Learn from mistakes, of course, and let it shape future actions, but just get out there and give it a go. So thank you very much for coming on and fitting us into your busy world tours of workshops and teaching people how to be creative and innovative. If people want to learn more, I know there's DuncanWardle.com. Is that where you'd point people to?
Yeah, or the Lamb and Flag in Covent Garden on any given Friday. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, yeah, just DuncanWardle.com is the easiest way to find me.
Fabulous. Well, thanks again, Duncan. It's been a pleasure, and you've taught me a lot of things, both from reading your book and speaking to you today.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers.